The Piper by Anonymous. The sea breeze blew from the shore of the black water, and the stars were rising. The young maidens had gone homewards to the little farms, carrying on their fingers the metal rings their friends had bought them at the fair. The youths went across the common singing their songs. At last their sonorous voices could no more be heard. The light dresses of the damsels were no longer to be seen. It was night. Nevertheless, here was Lau with a merry company at the entrance of the lonely heath. Lau, the celebrated piper, come expressly from the mountains to lead the dance at the fair of armor. His face was as red as a March moon, his black locks floated as they would upon the wind, and he held under his arm the pipe whose magic sounds had even set in motion a number of old women in their sabots. When they came to the crossroad of the warning, where there rises the granite cross all overgrown with moss, the women stopped and said, "Let us take the pathway leading towards the sea." 173. Master Lau pointed out the belfry tower of Plaugian over the hill and said, "That is the point we are making for. Why not go across the heaths?" The women answered, "Because there rises a city of Corrigans Lau in the middle of that heath, and one must be pure from sin to pass it without danger." But Lau laughed aloud. "By heaven," said he, "I have traveled by night time all these roads, yet I have never seen your little black men counting their money by moonlight, as they tell us at the chimney corner. Show me the road leading to the Corrigan city, and I will go and sing to them the days of the week one." But the women all exclaimed, "Don't tempt God. Lau, God has put some things in this world of which it is better to be ignorant, and others which we ought to fear. Leave the Corrigans alone to dance about their granite dwellings." "To dance," cried Lau, "then the Corrigans have pipers too. They have the whistling of the wind across the heath, and the singing of the night bird." "Well then," said the mountaineer, "I am 174 determined that today at least they shall have Christian music. I will go across the common, playing some of my best Cornwall airs." So saying, he put his pipe to his lips, and striking up a cheerful strain, he set off boldly on the little footway that stretched like a white line across the gloomy heath. The women, terrified, made the sign of the cross and hurried down the hill. But Lau walked straight on without fear, and played meanwhile upon his pipes. As he advanced, his heart grew bolder, his breath more powerful, and the music louder. Already had he crossed just half the common, when he saw the menhir rising like a phantom in the night, and further on the dwellings of the Corrigans. Then he seemed to hear an ever-rising murmur. At first it was like the trickling of a rill, then like the rushing of a river, and then the roaring of the sea, and different sounds were mingled in this roar, sometimes like stifled laughs, then furious hissing, the mutterings of low voices, and the rush of steps upon the withered grass. Lau began to breathe less freely, and his restless eyes glanced right and left over the common. It was as if the tufts of heath were moving, all seemed alive and whirling in the gloom, all took the form of hideous dwarfs, and voices were distinctly 175 heard. Suddenly, the moon rose and Lau cried aloud. To left, to right, behind, before, everywhere, far as the eye could reach, the common was alive with running Corrigans. Lau, bewildered, drew back to the menhir against which he leant. But the Corrigans saw him, and came round with cries like those of grasshoppers. "It is the famous piper of Cornwall, come hither to play for the Corrigans." Lau made the sign of the cross, but all the little men surrounded him and shrieked, "Thou belongest to us, Lau, pipe, then thou famous piper, and lead the dance of the Corrigans." Lau in vain resisted. Some magic power mastered him. He felt the pipe approach his lips. He played, he danced in spite of himself. The Corrigans surrounded him with circling bands, and every time he would have paused they cried in chorus, "Pipe, famous piper, pipe, and lead the dance of the Corrigans." Lau went on thus the whole night, but as the stars grew paler in the sky, the music of his pipes waxed fainter. His feet had greater difficulty in moving from the ground. At last the dawn of day spread palely in the east. The cocks were heard crowing in the distant farms, and the Corrigans disappeared. 176. Then the mountain piper sunk down breathless at the foot of the menhir. The mouthpiece of his pipes fell from his shriveled lips, his arms dropped upon his knees, his head upon his breast, to rise no more, and voices murmured in the air. "Sleep, famous piper, thou hast led the dance of the Corrigans, thou shalt never lead the dance for Christians." More. 177. 1 C tale at p. 31.